Krista here. We are in the limelight with yet another extraordinary author, entrepreneur, and another story that I want you to know about because it's one of those kind of stories that not only is it an overcoming story, but it's one of the kind of things that is so current. It's something we hear about a lot and far too much. And I want to, along with my author today, bring some light to the situation. I do want to remind you that you can watch this video once it's done. We're going live today, but you can watch it on in the Limelight TV channel, and that's over on Binge Networks. You can see it on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, and another 100 smart television apps. And you can listen to it pretty much anywhere where you get your podcast. Okay, let's bring on our guest today, an extraordinary author who has just done almost the impossible in the last week since her book dropped. Let's let her tell you about it. There's Valerie Walsh. So good to see you. I cannot wait to talk about Shattered to the Core. This is your book. It just dropped. And what did you do in the last week or so?
Oh my gosh, I think I sold over 1,500 copies, Clarissa.
That's unbelievable. That's gorgeous. Let's see. Put it up to the camera. Yeah, wow. Shattered to the Core. Such a beautiful cover. And I want everyone to know, what's the byline? I can hardly read it.
How I made peace with my past and reclaim my future. So it's a tough, subject we're going to talk about, but It has a very hopeful ending.
Yeah. So I know enough about the story to know that you suffered when your mother committed suicide. I believe it was in 2013. After which you had a very difficult period as well with your health. Why don't you start giving us a little bit of the backstory here on what was happening in your life that triggered you to want to write Shattered to the Core?
Okay, first of all, I want to say thanks for having me on, Clarissa. I'm so glad to be here with you today. And that important question that you had said, taking us all back to like 2013, and what we say in the mental health community is that somebody died by suicide. And the reason why we say that, and it's important, and I actually didn't know this, so people will still use that language, committed, and that's okay. That's part of why we're having these conversations. Even after my mother passed, I was still using that phrase, committed suicide. Okay. And what I learned through working with NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, is that we now say died by, because if we truly believe that mental illness should be treated like all other illnesses, we would never say committed cancer, or it sounds like committed a crime.
Yeah, I'm gonna interject something that I heard recently, and I don't know, again, the political correctness of everything, all the different terminology, but I heard she unalived herself.
Ooh,
with something new.
Yeah. I don't know if I can align myself with that, but I can definitely say, unfortunately, yes, my mother succumbed to the final stage of her depression, which is suicide, and she died by suicide in 2013. And what happened was, I was turning 40. So she passed away in May, and I was coming up my 40th birthday that November. And I was going to go for all of my checkups, like the big checkups that we do and yada, yada, yada. And I went to the doctor a few months before I was going to turn 40. So this was only shortly a few months after she had passed away. And one of those appointments was to have my mammogram and ultrasound, because I have tiny chest and dense breast tissue. And in that breast tissue, they found precancerous breast cells, something called LCIS. And I knew right away, because I was a thyroid cancer survivor, and I knew how I emotionally handled my thyroid cancer diagnosis. I knew right away, I'm not going down this road. I'm not going down the what if road. It wasn't so much a physical decision for me to have my preventive mastectomy, but I was protecting my emotional health, because I just knew it was going to trigger anxiety. So to answer your question, I lost my mom, and then I made a decision to have a preventive mastectomy just shortly a few months later.
Right.
Then my emotions were all over the place. I was a mess, honestly.
Yeah. I can imagine.
So I just started journaling. I would just, I would be at a doctor appointment and just think of something that I wanted to reflect on. So I would speak it into my phone in my notes. So I had all these notes written in my phone, on the computer. It just became, a time where I could just journal, because I didn't know where to put all of these emotions I was having. I didn't even understand what I was going through. Right. We need perspective for that. So that's when I didn't know at the time. I just started writing a bunch of notes, and then flash forward during the pandemic. I had been sober by the time we went into the pandemic for a few years, and we'll get to that in a minute. But I'm like, you know what? I'm feeling pretty good. I really think I could take my pain and do some good here. Why don't I put it together and formulate a manuscript? So I had most of it written. I really did. I had from the time she had passed away to 2013 to where I was then. And then I really had to piece together. There were 2 years in there that I had to piece together. And that was a little hard to do. But that's how the Shattered to the Core came to be, was just really off of my journals.
And is that how you were feeling? Were you feeling shattered to the core? For how long? And at what point did you finally say, wait a minute, no, I'm not going down that path again?
Okay. So when that full year happened and I went through my surgery, when everything settled, right? The dust settled. I thought, okay, now we're just going to go back to real life. So that was like 2014, like life moves on, right? My mom's gone. I'm healed from my surgery. I can go back to what I'm supposed to be doing. Well, and I didn't address anything. I didn't address, the trauma from losing her that way, or, the physical changes in my body, nothing. And so I would say, in 2015, which people will also read, I started drinking again. So from 2015 to 2017, I was drinking, albeit not often. When I did drink, it was pretty heavy. Like I just wanted to check out. I wanted to numb the feelings I was feeling.
Right.
So when I made the decision to become sober, that the healing started. Because as we all know, or maybe not, I shouldn't make those assumptions because I'm still learning every day. Mental illnesses and addiction tend to go hand in hand. So it wasn't until I could claim my sobriety that I could say, okay, now the real work begins. So for me, I would say 2013 to 2017 is really when I was shattered. The healing for me started September 17th, 2017.
Isn't it funny how we remember dates like that? It's incredible how we remember dates like that.
September 16th, 2017 was the last time I ever had a drink. And that's when my healing began.
Right. And when did you, is it that at that point you decided to pick up the manuscript again and make it become a book or finish it out?
Absolutely.
And what was that tangent of time like for you? Now that you knew that you were on a healing path, as you're healing, you're writing.
Incredible. And I look back, I'm like, oh, that's why that was supposed to happen that way. You know what I mean? Like there are no mistakes. But so what happened was I had this, I would say I would call it more like a journal. And, in the writing world, you will hear like, oh, I don't want to read a memoir that reads like a journal. So I'm so glad that I went back and then I was able to interject some perspective and healing, because what I did was when I got sober, I pieced it together and then I sent it off to a line editor. And if I could drop her name, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And then I came to work with other fantastic people as well. And she really, really encouraged me to dig deeper. Like she would just put in the margins, I need to know more about your mom. I need to know what she was doing was she was character developing for me. I didn't, and I was like, oh, okay. If you had asked me to do that years ago, I'd have been like, nope, we're not going to touch that subject. We'll write about it. I wasn't ready. So what I did was I went to my mother's sister, my aunt, who lives close to me. And I said, do you mind if we talk about mom for a little bit? And I pressed record on my phone and I learned who my mother was as a young mother. She had my sister when she was 18 and she had me when she was 19. So piecing together like the circumstances of what she was up against in her life helped me to formulate who she was. How did she get to that place? And
what the consequences may have been.
What the consequences may have been for myself.
Right.
If I didn't say, whoa, let's recognize what that is and use the tools that my mom fought hard to give me, because she did, and make better choices. And one of those better choices for me was also because I had to get sober. I mean, alcoholism runs in my family. So I had to make that decision. Like, okay, maybe it won't happen to me now, but we see that path. Like your mom gave you a map, you might not want to take the road on the left. You might want to take the road on the right,
Right.
instead.
So, and a little bit more discovery with you about your mother with your aunt. Where did you find that there might have been similarities with your mother and places where you were just completely different?
To know her as a woman, like as a mother, when my aunt and I were talking, I kind of put myself in her shoes, and I kept thinking that would have triggered my anxiety. I can't imagine what she went through when she was in those ways. We were so similar.
Yeah.
She suffered with anxiety. I suffer with anxiety. She suffered with bouts of depression. I suffered with bouts of depression. So in those ways, our brains were very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
And also being a huge empath, like we both tended to overcompensate. Like,
Mm-hmm.
You asked my mom or you asked me, years ago. Now I'll tell you, like, nope, can't do that. My answer is no. If I can't take something, on, if you would ask either one of us, like, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. No, like there were days that my mother wasn't fine and she kept trudging along. So like, for me, how I'm different now is I realize, okay, yes, the power is in the surrender of alcohol. Sure. But the power is in the surrender of a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like when I learned to finally say, you know what, I got to let go. I got to let go of taking on too much. I got to let go of overcompensating. I have to really focus on what protects my mental health, because now I'm more aware. That's it. And it's also just because we have more tools now. Like a huge tool for me is exercise. My mom wasn't going to a gym in her 20s. She was working her butt off to try to put food on the table for her two girls.
Yeah, of course. Of course. What is then, and I think you've already answered the question, what is it, do you think, that really was a turning point or a tipping point for you from, where you were? So I'm assuming that you must have known growing up that mom was depressed, was anxious, and you were also kind of living in that as well. Then you had the alcohol that was you used as a tool to sort of get rid of the pain, and squash it a little bit. And then you said on the 17th of September, that's it, I'm done, no more drinking. What was it that was a tipping point for you? What do you think happened?
It was a culmination of events. It took a lot of people who really loved me to tell me the truth.
Right.
And I do write about in my story about a really dear friend of mine that I've known since childhood. It took her to pull me aside and say, "Hey, I'm worried about you." It took that. It took self-reflection. It took what it took. It took, I believe in God. I had a God-like moment. It took that to shake me my shoulders and say, wake up. If you don't do something about this now and make a choice today to live your life differently, it's not going to end well.
So for everybody that just joined, we are talking to author Valerie J. Walsh. She has come to the table today with her brand new book. It is called Shattered to the Core. And it just dropped about, 7-8 days ago. And she's already sold, almost, I think, close to 2,000 copies. It's flying off the shelves at Amazon, and I don't know where else it might be. But it's a beautiful cover. Let's see it again. There you go. Shattered to the Core. Give me the byline again.
Okay, it says, I got to learn how to do this, Clarissa. How I made peace with my past and reclaimed my future.
Okay, so we've made peace with the past. We're at that point of the story. Let's reclaim your future. What were the first steps that you started to do and to take in order to make that happen? I'm going to go with probably the gym was one of them.
Oh, yeah. So the gym's always been one of them for me. But, you can't exercise your way out of a depression. That couldn't be a useful tool.
Right.
But as anyone will tell you, when they're really in the thick of it, you're not going to lecture somebody into going to the gym. And I am a trainer. So I'm like, all right, I totally get that. So for me, it was a collective amount of tools. It was getting sober. It was exercising. It was going to therapy. At one time, it was taking medicine. Like, I believe in all of those tools. It depends on what you need, but it's a practice. Like for me, it was recognizing, okay, let's simplify this. We're going to simplify a complex issue because mental illness is complex, right? But practicing something diligently is simple. So I knew, like, okay, just the same way that you want to train for a 5K, Valerie, why are you not thinking of your mental health the same way? Like, you need to practice these things that are helping you get better every single day.
Right.
So, at the time when you're asking me, you're taking me back to 2017. At the time, it was literally getting up and praying. I'm like, okay, you lost yourself. And I don't want people who are, we're not talking about religion here. So please don't check out, everybody, or spirituality, whatever you believe in. It was my quiet time to connect to what made me and to connect to spirit. Right. So I would take that time. Then I would get outside. I had to get outside every day because I found it very healing to literally be outside in nature. And movement for me is medicine. So it took the practices of my spirituality, getting outside, and then lastly, being with other people, connection.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Huge. And not withdrawing, because like one of the number one things that people do that have that experience depression is they'll tell you is, I didn't realize it was getting that bad. I just became a hermit. And then that isolation takes over. And now we got a real problem. So even on the days where I felt like, oh, like what, I'll give myself a day. Everybody needs a down day. But if I found like, ooh, you're getting into those patterns where you're withdrawing a little bit.
Exactly.
I'll connect with people purposely. And that's just a practice.
I've always found that music helps immensely as well. Music is another really great helper. Okay. So the book is now, so at what point did you say, okay, I'm done. Book is done. Moving forward. Let's get the part of book was done. And now it's, it's a number one bestseller.
So I like that, number one bestseller.
I know.
So I had finished up until I think whatever the timeline was, 2015. Then I had these years to fill in. So the last 2 chapters were the hardest for me to write because those aren't chapters I was taking notes on. So I had to go back. So that took a little time. And then finally, when it got out of the line editing phase and I connected with the awesome people on our publishing mastermind, and I sent it off to the good copy editors and the editors through GMK, Gary Krebs. I am sorry, I'm not formally saying his company name correctly, but that's
okay. No, it's fine. Gary also co-wrote my book. He's the best of the best.
He's the best of the best. And it also took people on his team to say, okay, pens down. You know what I mean? Like they looked at it and I'm like, but I want to add this, like pens down. I
love that. I've never heard that before.
I never heard that before, but I was like,
pens down. That's good.
Yes. Okay. Pens down. And it was already written, but there were things that were coming up. I'm like, okay, that's okay. So maybe there'll be another book. I don't know. But anyhow, it took a little bit of coaching. Like, okay, it's enough. You have enough here, Valerie. This is fantastic. Right. And people are really connecting with it. All I did was tell my story. I didn't offer any advice. I simply told my story.
That's great. That's really great. I can't congratulate you enough on the success that you're having right now. And it's unfortunate, but the way it goes when we have to go through that much pain in order to be able to work an opus or an opera like you have just done and to be able to share it with everyone else so that they might be helped and or potentially healed through the work that you've done. So let's tell everybody where they can find the book and let's tell everybody where they can find you on social.
Okay, so you can find the book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. Good. And it's called Shattered to the Core. You can find me on Instagram, Valerie J. Walsh, author, on Facebook at The Core Fitness Method, and my website, which is valeriejwalsh.com.
Fantastic. Okay, parting words.
You know what?
Advice. Give some advice.
Okay, let's do 3 things that you can do to protect your mental health today. Eat well, get out and move. Movement is medicine, and connect with peeps. Connect with people. Eat well, move
and connect with people. You've just had somebody from Italy by the name of Miguel Milani who has just said it's a very beautiful cover you've got there.
Oh, thank you, Miguel. Libby did a great job. Libby
Grazie, Miguel. Ciao, Patrizia, se ci sei ancora. We had some Italian friends popping in and certainly some others.
Mental illness is a global issue.
Yes, it definitely is. So when we're talking about something, so let's end with that. I like ending with that because if you know of someone or if it is yourself that is really feeling suicidal, if you're feeling like you're not in the greatest place, get the help. Where can they go, Valerie? Where can people
Okay.
go to get the help?
You know, I should pull this up, and excuse me, I should have had this at the ready. I'm not sure what it is internationally, but our National Alliance on Mental Illness, I'm going to pull this up right now, and it's worth it if you just give me a moment.
Sure, no
And
problem.
I will say if you ever feel that somebody you know might be having suicidal ideations, be direct with them. Ask them, are you feeling suicidal?
Yes.
You will not put something in somebody's head. Okay.
Right. Right.
If you or someone you know needs help, this is in the United States. I'm sorry, I don't know globally the information to get you, but our number for NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness, is 1-800-950-6264. And I want everybody to put this in their phone right now too. If you or somebody you know needs to text because they're in crisis right away, you can simply text NAMI, NAMI, to
Okay, great.
741-741.
And get all the information that you need. There is no reason. There's more than enough help out there, and certainly a lot of loving people that would really be happy to help. Miguel is letting us know that he's not coming in from Italy, but he's coming in from Switzerland. Okay, grazie, Miguel. And I can't thank you enough, Valerie, because for the time that you've given us today, and for the message, the very strong and important message that we're leaving with everyone that's watched this, and continued success, my friend. I'm really, really thrilled for you.
Thanks so much, Clarissa. I really appreciate you having me on and asking these tough questions.
Thanks. Stay right there. Bye-bye, everybody.